Hi, everybody. My name is Michaela Byer, and today I'm going to be speaking with Barbara Anna Marion, the daughter of Brian Jones, who founded the Rolling Stones. Barbara Anna Marion did not initially know that Brian was her father. However, she found out as an adult, and since then she has spoken in documentaries and to journalists about her father and about her opinions on his life, his work, and his passing. And I'm going to speak with her about all of that today and what her life has been like as the daughter of a legend and a Rolling Stone. Thank you so much for coming on, Marion.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. Alrighty. So, firstly, when did you find out that Brian Jones was your father?
Oh God, April of 2002. I was actually pregnant at the time, and my mother was going through. She had stage 4 cancer, and it had metastasized, and she was going through chemotherapy. And it just one day out of the blue, she called me to her room and asked me to sit on her bed. And she said, you may or may not discover this, but if you do discover it, I want to be the one who tells you. And she told me, and I didn't know who the hell he was. I'm like, what? Who? Because she said a musician, Rolling Stones, and I didn't know of a Brian Jones. I only knew of a Mick Jagger and a Keith Richards. And basically she told me because she believed that she was going to pass away, and it would be better for me to hear it from her rather than discover it some other way, which I would have through like DNA and all that, the ancestry and all that stuff. I would have figured something out. When she told me, like I said, I didn't know who he was. It didn't surprise me that the father who raised me, her husband, was not my father, because I suspected I was adopted for a long time. I used to ask my mother, am I adopted? Because I just did not fit into my family in any way, shape, or form. I just could not relate to anybody. I didn't look like anybody. I kind of look like my mom, but she's real dark, and obviously I'm not. She's dark hair, dark eyes.
Okay.
And just, so I immediately went down and I Googled him. And I saw his face. And I'm like, oh, that's what I've been looking at for these last 30. I was 33, 2002. I must have been 33 years old in April. Yeah, I had just turned 30. Mm-hmm.
Now, did your mother tell you the story of how she met Brian?
She did. And the story kind of changed.
Oh.
Her first, because she didn't want to appear like, she didn't want to appear badly. She said, well, I met him at the May 12th backstage at a concert, the Wembley concert. And it was a one-time thing, and, it was an accident, and, this is what happened. Come to find out that really she knew him for a couple months. She knew him from the beginning of May until the end of June. They were associated because she would hang back and forth to Olympic. She was staying in England at the time. My dad was in Germany. He spent a lot of time in Germany. Still don't know why. I think army related, military related. And she preferred not to stay in Germany.
Okay, so you're the man who eventually wound up raising you was in the armed forces, and your mother was staying in England at the time, and that's kind of how she wound up in Europe, because your mother is actually an American, correct?
She is an American. She is an American, and she did not want to stay in America while my dad was away, but she also didn't want to stay in Germany. So she had relatives in England. Evidently, one of them knew somebody at Olympic Studios, and this is how she got in, more or less.
Yep. And what did she say about her initial? you just said her story changed, but was she eventually a little bit more open with you? And did she share kind of her memories and her early impressions of your father?
She shared a bit.
Mm.
I was forbidden to tell people. When she told me, she said, I don't want you to tell anyone because there are people in your family that don't know. So don't tell anybody. So this huge secret. And then she says, this huge revelation. And then she tells me, oh, but don't tell anyone.
Oh,
So it was really hard to get
goodness.
Yeah, she's something else. She's passed away now, but yeah, she gave me very little information. Didn't want to talk about it. Kind of gave me the basics. I had to go digging and find out myself a lot of stuff. So, but
Well, one thing, sorry, go ahead.
So she was backstage at that May 12th, 1968 concert. That I know.
Okay.
And I do believe that they carried out seeing each other once in a while until the end of June.
Okay. And after she found out that she was expecting a child, did she try to tell him at all?
I don't think she found out until that fall. And they were, at that point, not seeing each other anymore. But she did reach out to the Stones office in December of 1968 before my father came back to pick her up from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
She was pregnant. So she contacted the Stones office in 1968, December, and said, I'm pregnant with Brian's child. I'm married. My husband and I are going back to the States to have the baby. Didn't hear anything. So I don't know if the Stones office actually conveyed that message to my father. I have no idea. And then the next time she called the Stones office, because she had no way to get a hold of Brian. Brian would move around and he'd have different numbers, and there's just no way to get a hold of him, is what she told me, except for contacting the Stones office, which she did have that number. In 5 days, well, February 28th, 1969, I was born February 23rd. So she said it was a Friday, February 28th, she contacted the Stones office to say that she did in fact have the baby, and it's a girl, and please tell Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his 27th birthday. But
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know if there was no indication that he got that news. I would hope that he did, but there was no communication after that. So,
is there any way now to research what happened in that office? Like, do they have archives, or is there any access to that so that you could at least?
I would like to know. I had not thought of that. I would really like to know. Yeah, I would. She did actually show me a picture of her and Brian together. I do not have that picture.
Really? So
there is one picture. I do not have that picture. She showed it to me, slapped it up, put it away, and hid it. And I'm like, okay, I'll get it from her later. When she passed away, she actually survived her cancer. And she lived until May 21st of 2020.
Wow. So she was alive until recently, and but she never gave you that picture back. Oh my goodness.
Never did. I said, okay, well, I'll get it back when she dies. She died on May 21st. She died suddenly of a heart attack. And my brother.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. My son was there when she passed, and my brother was I have an older brother. He was in condo next to them because they had two large condos on the beach in Myrtle Beach, and he was in the condo next to her. They swooped in. My sister-in-law and my brother swooped in and cleaned everything out that she had and put it into storage. Now, I believe that picture is still somewhere in storage.
Yeah, like, is there a way to access that?
Oh, I'd love to. I would love to. I'd have to talk to my brother. My brother, I don't speak to. I haven't spoken to. Last time I spoke to him was my mother's funeral. We don't have a good relationship. Yeah, you know what?
Again,
I would love to get that. I would love to get that photo.
I bet. I mean, and in a personal way, it would be wonderful, but also in terms of evidence, it would be wonderful to have that picture to show.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, I hope that you and your brother are able to work it out, and you're able to look through her belongings and find that picture eventually.
He did give me a bunch of her belongings and some photos, but nothing that, the photo wasn't in there. So.
Okay. Do you mind me asking what your mother's name was?
Her name's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Okay, so Elizabeth Marion.
Oh, no. She went by the name Elizabeth Anderson professionally, but her name was Elizabeth Bogdanovich, which when she was doing all her catalog modeling, they told her, no way are you going to use that name because that sounds too Russian, even though it wasn't Russian, it's actually Serbian. But they told her, make up another name. So she went by Elizabeth Anderson. Marion is actually my husband's name.
Okay. And I guess you grew up what was the name that you grew up with? Was it Barbara Anna?
My father's name is Wolf.
Okay, so Barbara Anna Wolf Marion. Okay. And well, what a story! Like, and it would be wonderful to see a picture of your mother and what she looked like when she met Brian. Do you have a picture of her from when she was that age?
I probably do. I would have to look for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I'm such a little history nerd, and it would be wonderful to see her like as Brian saw her, and and just what a cool thing. So she was a print model. Did she model in America, or was she doing any modeling in England?
No, she modeled in America for catalogs like Montgomery Ward's, and I do have a few pictures. I think they're even on my Facebook.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that I put some photos, a couple of her modeling photos on my Facebook. I'd have to go get them.
Yeah. If you have some time, or if you have them on Facebook, I would love to see them, and maybe even use them as part of the promo for when I'm posting this interview.
Sure. Yeah, I could get them. I have they're either in Google Photos or they're on Facebook, and I can't remember which, but I will find them.
Excellent. Alrighty. So did your mother play the Rolling Stones for you at all when you were a child, or was that just something that she kind of avoided?
She avoided that totally. Okay. She avoided that subject. It was a very sore subject.
Okay. And I'm guessing that she spoke more with this about you between 2002 when she told you, and then 2020 when she passed away. Like, was it just too painful for her, or did she not want you to kind of catch on to the fact that he was your father?
She did not want to discuss it. No, she's told me some things, but and only after I dig and dig and dig. But she really didn't want to discuss that because she had this. Everybody was believing that this man who raised me was my biological father. She didn't want to appear to be a loose woman, even though she was a kind of a party girl, but she didn't want people to think bad. She wanted to keep the impression that she was, on the up and up all the time, when clearly wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, understandable. I wouldn't want to judge your mother and what she wants.
She had a good time in the 60s.
Okay. And I'm kind of curious, like, was she able to get to know any of the other Rolling Stones, or was it just your father that she came into contact with?
No, she did see the other Rolling Stones, but she had no comment about them. She didn't have anything to say about,
Okay.
yeah. But she was there
Okay.
with them, interacting with them. So,
Exactly. And you said that she was backstage at the Wembley show in May of 1968.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to go on and look for a picture of that show because I would love to be able to use that as part of the interview as well. And just, I mean,
I
what
can
a cool piece of hair.
I do have those pictures as well. Again, I'd have to go through Google Photos again, but that's fine. I will find the pictures of Wembley.
Excellent. Thank you. Artie. And so on to your father. He was a very talented instrumentalist, and you yourself are also a musician. When did you realize that you were musically talented?
I don't know if I was, I play a lot of instruments and I really enjoy playing them. I'd like to think I'm talented, but that's subjective. Uh, I started playing piano when I was about 6 years old. Um,
Whoa.
right. And I just picked that up. When I was 12, I begged my parents for a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave me like a nylon string, wide neck, kind of Spanish classical guitar that was really cheap. It was really cheap. And so I started playing that and I started becoming really obsessed with the guitar. And then for my 13th birthday, I really, really wanted this Fender Telecaster. It was a Sunburst Fender Telecaster, and it cost about $1,800 back in '80s. So that was quite a
A high-end purchase.
right. I kept begging and begging and begging.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget this. I was sitting on the kitchen floor on my 13th birthday. My dad comes in. He's carrying a big Fender case. I don't know if you've seen them before, but they're big and black and kind of square.
Mhm.
Drops it on the floor of the kitchen. And he says, "You don't deserve this." And he takes his foot, kicks it over to me. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. "You don't deserve this." He kicks it over to me, and I'm like, oh my God. And he walks away. Yeah, my dad was something else. And I'm like, oh my God. And the smell of that new guitar and the plush lining of that case. Oh, I was obsessed with that guitar. I just absolutely was obsessed.
And what were some of the first?
Oh, I
And
love
so,
Jimi Hendrix was a big one for me that I just absolutely loved Jimi Hendrix. The Who. I loved The Who. So I learned how to play Pinball Wizard. I learned how to play The Wind Cries Mary, Hey Joe, things like that.
and he was actually a huge admirer of your father's too.
He was. I didn't know that at the time. I had no idea what I was doing, but I just absolutely loved The Who and Jimi Hendrix. So those were the main things that I focused on. Learned how to play lead guitar. I just love that thing. Then later on in, let's see, freshman year of high school, so I was 14, I learned how to play the flute. And I became obsessed with the flute as well. And so that's piano, guitar, flute. I picked up the Irish tin whistle. I picked up the recorder, the dulcimer. Later on, my first dulcimer that I got, it is a McSpadden dulcimer, and I got that, I believe, in 2008.
Okay.
Then I bought a trapezoidal hammer dulcimer, and just about anything I pick up, I just love. Oh, I also learned how to play the clarinet in band as well. So I'm really not that good at the reed instruments. I'm much better at flute, but I just
I can.
love it. I just love music, and I love my dulcimer.
Uh, and and you sound very, very similar to your father in that way. I mean, he was such a talented instrumentalist, like we were saying before, and he knew so many instruments. Just you can tell it's in the blood with you.
Oh, I love exotic instruments. You just set anything in front of me that looks, oh, I've never seen that before. Let me learn how to play that. And that's me. I love music.
It's you and him both. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. So were in those years when you were playing and loving music as a teenager, did you ever get to see the Rolling Stones in concert?
The only time I saw the Rolling Stones in concert was in Quebec City in 2015, when my husband took me to see the Rolling Stones live. And
Um,
we were way in back. It was kind of like a festival that they have in Quebec,
okay.
and we were way in back. And I didn't think it was that great of a show, but it was the Stones. So, yeah. So I only saw the Rolling Stones in 2015, the first time. Actually, it was July 12th, 2015 in Quebec City. And July
And
12th is an important date for the Stones. In that I think that was their first gig.
really,
Yeah.
so that was I guess that would have been the 55th anniversary. Yeah, something like that. But wow, and by then you knew and everything. I mean, had you already gone public with being Brian's daughter?
Yeah, I had already met. Yeah, I have. I did.
Wow, my gosh. Anyway, leading up to that, like after you found out that he was your father, what was your initial research process like? I mean, was it Google? Did you automatically start trying to contact people? Walk me through it.
It was Google. It was Google. And then I got onto message boards. Back then we didn't, I don't know if we had Facebook back then. We didn't. We had MySpace. That's what it was. But I went on to message boards. Um, I, I don't even know if they're in existence anymore. It was so long ago.
Some of them stay up, but most of that is kind of transferred over to Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that.
Exactly. And I think I started posting on message boards, asking questions, did a lot of research. There was one book that I read, Stone Alone, by
Yes, Bill Lyman.
Mm-hmm. And what I did do in 2003 or 4 was send letters, find out. I went on to their 192.com. I believe that was what I went on. I found where my grandparents lived.
Nice.
And I sent letters.
Okay. And what did they ever reply to you?
I know that some
I'm
of
sorry,
my,
Barbara.
well, I knew that my siblings had sent letters as well, and they just absolutely never replied to any of us. So it
I
is what
mean,
it is. I would have loved to know them.
I mean, their loss. Do you think it's maybe because they got so many fake letters that they eventually stopped responding to people who might have been his actual children?
I don't know if they got any fake letters. I've never heard that they got fake letters or that anybody has claimed to be. I don't think that was the problem. I think that they just didn't want anything to do with his parents were of a certain age and a certain mindset that did not accept illegitimate children. I don't think they were too pleased with Brian and his plethora of children.
Yeah,
So
and my understanding is that they had a bit of a troubled relationship with him initially, regardless of the children. So maybe there was the added element of, well, he was our son, but we really were not on good terms with him throughout much of his life. And I mean, it's very fortunate for your father and for all of his children that was the situation.
that's true. It is. It is unfortunate, but it is what it is. What are you going to do? They were very old-fashioned people. I mean, they were English and they were born, let's see, I think I know when they died. Lewis died in 2009 and Louise died in 2011. So they were born in an era where this, they just weren't going to welcome children, illegitimate children, into their home with open arms. But I did try. I tried a few times.
And okay, and when you didn't get a response from them, did you try with any other family members?
I tried with my siblings.
Okay, and tell me what that was like.
Positive.
Excellent. Let's hear more. Let's hear more about it. I know that you have. Just sorry. Go ahead.
You know what? I never tried to contact. I know where Barbara is, his sister. I know where her two children are. I know about them.
Okay.
I just never, after the initial trying to contact his parents and getting radio silence, I thought, well, that's going to be the same there. So why am I even going to try? So I know where they are. I know I've seen pictures and I've seen, I know who they are, but never tried to contact them. But I did try to contact my siblings and got a very positive response from some of them. So.
Okay. Well, let's walk through each of them. I know that there are 6 other siblings besides you, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Nice. And how about Julian Leach, who eventually became the stepson of Donovan Leach? Do you know him?
I've seen him once, but I am really, really good friends with his wife.
Okay.
We're good friends.
And
very good. She's a Brian. But I don't
and
really.
what about?
I used to speak with him through Facebook, but that was the extent of it. Yeah, I don't really, and that's fine. That's cool.
Okay. And there's also, I believe, Julian Mark Andrews, the son of Pat Andrews. Do you know him?
I do not know Mark, but I do know Pat.
Okay.
And she's really cool.
Nice.
She's a lovely person. She really is a lovely person.
Nice.
Mark is my siblings are very private.
Okay.
Very, very private people. So, yeah.
Okay. I understand. Are there any stories that you can share with me, though, of finding any of your siblings, or would you prefer just to...
No, I can't. I formed a very good friendship with one of my siblings, and that was very healing for me, because never in my life have I ever seen somebody who resembles me physically and who has the same tastes in music, the same thought processes. Mm-hmm. It was what could be referred to as genetic mirroring. Mm-hmm. And formed a good friendship with a sibling. And that was great. That was very, very affirming. So.
And I'm sure it was the same way for that sibling. I mean, was it a situation where the sibling had not really had an opportunity to meet a lot of people who knew Brian either?
He had met his mother. He was adopted out, and he had met his mother and his other family. But he knows one other sibling. No, he knows 2 other siblings. But really didn't connect with them as well. But we were instant. Okay. We were instant friends.
Aw. And that kind of leads me to something else. You're a parent yourself now, and I believe you have one son.
I have 4 sons.
Four. Whoa.
Four.
Nice. And is it fun being able to share that heritage with your children?
Well, you know what? They're not all that interested, to be completely honest with you.
Oh,
I've shared it, and it was of interest for about a week for them, and then they're like, "Oh, okay." They really, it's just, my eldest son is 30, and
okay.
my youngest son is 18. So it's like, oh, that's cool. And then I think one of them did buy a book, and pretty much we just don't talk about it. It's just not a part of our everyday lives.
Okay. And as far as like how your life has been geographically, you were born in the Chicago area, correct?
Yes, correct.
Nice.
Correct.
And did you spend your entire childhood there, or did your family move around?
No, pretty much we spent my entire childhood was in the Chicago area. Yeah.
Nice.
Me as an adult, oh Lord, I have been a lot of places, lived in a lot of places, and got to, yeah.
Nice. And one thing I'm curious about, you said you have an older brother, correct?
Correct.
Was your older brother with your mother when she was living in London? And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, he was. He was with her, and she was staying with relatives.
Okay.
And I think the reason why my mom wanted to stay in London is because she knew she had a built-in babysitter and she could go ahead and do whatever she wanted.
Okay.
So they kept my brother, and she went out gallivanting.
And had a baby with a Rolling Stone.
Correct.
Power to her. She got a beautiful daughter out of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And let's see. Have you ever met any of your father's former bandmates in the Rolling Stones? I know that you read Bill Wyman's book. No?
I have not. I know I know that Julian has met them. Julian, Linda's son.
Okay.
I know that John has met Bill Wyman, but maybe Mark has met them too. I'm not sure, but I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Now, have you been able to discuss with any of your half siblings their own memories of your father? Because I know that Julian and Mark met him at least a couple of times. Like they didn't grow up with him, obviously, but were they at least able to share some memories with you?
No.
Okay.
No, they weren't. Like I said, I have not spoken to Mark at all.
Oh, that's right.
Just Pat. Pat was able to share memories. Pat has a lot of them, but I'm not. Julian was he had just turned 5, or he wasn't even 5 years old when Brian died.
Okay.
Brian wasn't really that attentive of a father at all.
He was not, unfortunately. And but as far as like speaking with Pat though, I know that they had their ups and downs, and like as you just pointed out, Brian was not an attentive father in any real way, but do you feel like people were still able to see the positive in him when they were speaking with you about it, and to be honest about who he was, and paint a clear picture of him for you as a daughter?
Okay, this is my mother said that he was gentle. He was not abusive. He's got this record of beating women and this and that. My mother said that not at all was he abusive to her. Not a mean word. Maybe he was to Anita Pallenberg. I don't know. But to my mother, he was very gentle. He was a gentleman. And she said that she never saw him use drugs, but she did say that he was physically addicted to alcohol, from what she could tell.
Okay.
That he would shake and he would need drink. That she did say.
And I know that by the time he would have met your mother, he was very physically weakened from his dependency on drugs and alcohol. And he was also an asthma sufferer. Apparently, he had an enlarged heart, and his liver was not in great shape when he passed away. So,
Right.
he would have
a full 15 months before he passed away. Yeah, something like that. So he wasn't quite as bad. Yeah,
yeah.
he was starting to decline. His health was starting.
And I've kind of heard both sides of that as well. Like, I've heard he could be very aggressive, not just with the women in his life, but also as a person. But I've also read and heard from various people that he had a soft side as well, and he could be very sweet and kind. Another kind of piece of Stone's history that I'm curious if you've read is Keith Richards' book, Life. Did you read it?
I have not. From my understanding, now I would love to meet Keith. I think he would be cool. I think he would be cool. From my understanding, it did not paint a really good picture of Brian. And
Yeah.
even though I have certain opinions about my father that are a bit negative, I don't particularly want to hear somebody else like ripping apart. So I didn't read that book. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I will.
Yeah. And the thing is, I kind of got both from Keith. Like, I felt like he has good memories of Brian, but they also had a relationship that had a lot of ups and downs in it. And was
God, yeah. I'm sure he could be an annoying person. Oh God, I have no doubt that Brian could be challenging, very challenging personality. Yeah.
And what is your impression of him on the whole? Like, do you think that he's such a hard person to really get a gauge on whenever I'm trying to read about him or study him or just get a sense of his personality, because there's so many different people saying so many different things about him. And I mean, what's your overall impression as a daughter who spoke?
Is that I believe that he had a traumatic childhood.
Yeah.
And from that traumatic childhood birthed, I don't have the authority to diagnose anybody. I don't know him. I was a baby when he died. From everything that I hear, he probably had some complex trauma from childhood, which led into a personality disorder.
Okay.
He was very much like a borderline. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion. I can't say yes, he was. He sounds a lot like he has borderline personality disorder. And that he had a sister who died when she was only 2.5.
Oh.
And I don't think, Pamela. And I don't think that was addressed correctly. And I don't think he was allowed to grieve. And I think that caused a lot of issues for him.
Okay. And then throughout his life, I think that from what I've read, one thing that is obvious to me is that he did struggle with depression for quite a lot of the time. And
that's the symptom of CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which I know I have from childhood. So this is how I'm able to kind of link up with him, with my own self, thinking, yeah, that sounds a lot like some of the behaviors I used to have. No longer have, but used to.
You've grown past that.
Oh God, yeah.
And let's talk a little bit more about that. Eventually, did you wind up going to college, and what kind of career did you have?
I'm a clinical hypnotherapist.
Wow.
My first career path was a clinical massage therapist. And then I had some real trouble in my life with alcohol. So I got past that.
Congratulations.
Quite. I got past that. And then I decided that I was going to take whatever I used to get past that and build on it to help other people. So then I went into training for clinical hypnotherapy. And yes, I did go through a training program, but there was a gentleman in Missouri, he's no longer with us, that took me under his wing, and he acted as a tutor. So I learned a lot from him. And I have helped a lot of people, which is really cool. So I took what my issues and my struggles, and then I took what I did to overcome that, and now I'm helping other people. So that's mainly with addictions.
Excellent. And so is that still what you do?
Yes.
Nice. And where are you living right now?
Currently, I'm in Detroit.
Okay. And do you travel frequently for your job? Or?
I do. Sorry? Because I work with a lot of high level individuals that don't have time to go into a rehab center, or they don't have time to do that. So I go to them and we do intensive 3-4 day sessions and work with them, and then continue after that initial 3 to 4 days of about 6 hours a day working with them. Then we do Zoom sessions or FaceTime.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So moving on, who are some people from your father's life that you haven't actually met but you would like to? You mentioned Keith Richards before.
Yeah, he would be cool. I would have loved to meet Anita Palmer. That would have been, but she's no longer with us. And most of the people that my father knew are no longer with us. There is a gentleman that I've had some communication with that I might go see. He lives in Italy. Stash. His name is Stash. Don't ask me to pronounce his name, but he was a companion of my dad's. So I'd love to go and see him and just ask. Yeah.
What about Bill Wyman? I know that he's actually been a great defender of your father throughout a lot of the Stones' career.
I have not met him.
Oh.
I'd love to. I actually would love to have a chat with Bill. That'd be great.
Like, do you know any ways to kind of perhaps make steps to get in touch with them? I mean, have you tried to reach out to their agents or their publicists or anything like that?
You know what? I don't think Keith would be that keen. I don't think he's interested in Brian's children. Bill Wyman might do something, but I've never really reached out or investigated on how I could get in touch. I really haven't.
I'd love to see that happen. I mean, I think it would be wonderful for you.
That would be great, because I'm in England often.
There you go.
Doesn't he? I don't know.
Bill Wyman? I think that he lives. I think that he still lives in England sometimes. I know that his wife is an American, so maybe they also spend time here. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's got 3 daughters from her, I believe.
Yeah, and he still has a restaurant, I believe, in London. So I bet that if you pursued that, you'd be able to eventually make contact and have a meeting with him.
I probably could. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. So on a lighter subject, what are some of your favorite Rolling Stones songs?
You know what? I've always loved Sympathy for the Devil.
That's a great one.
Before I even knew anything about Brian Jones, and No Expectations. And I've got a kind of a interesting story about No Expectations.
Hear it.
My mother said that after Brian had recorded that, she said that would be the 18th, 19th of May, the morning that she said that's when I was conceived.
Oh.
She said that she's pretty sure that's when it was, because then right directly after that, she said that Brian got busted for, I think that was May 21st, which was, that's the day she passed away. Wow, that's crazy. So she said that, she had been seeing him after she said it was just a one night stand. Okay. The more I dug into it, she says, yeah, that's pretty much, I believe, when you were conceived.
Yeah, and the dates line up as well with your birthday being in February.
Yeah, because I was actually 2 weeks late. And she always told me, you were late, you're always late, you were born late. And it lines up. She says, I was supposed to be born on February 9th, and that does line up. And I came out in 1969, almost 9 pounds, head full of hair. So yeah, they were about to induce her. And then she said, you were born within an hour, because I wasn't going to be induced. I wasn't going to do that. So.
And did you come out with lovely blonde hair like your father?
No, I did not. I had brown hair, and my mother was so relieved. She said, oh, she's going to look like me. I had a big brown hair. By the time I was 1 year old, it was platinum blonde. It all fell out.
Uh-huh.
All the baby hair fell out. It turned platinum blonde. She was pissed. She said she was not happy with that. But my kids did that too. My oldest two, they were born with this Elvis hair. And it fell out, and they turned blonde.
Now you have 4 sons. Do they look a lot like your father as well?
They look like their own father.
Okay.
They do.
Because I was
my last son. Yeah, I would say he resembles Brian.
Okay. Because I was going to say, like, you really do resemble Brian as well, not just the hair color, but in your face. Like, I've looked at pictures of you and him side by side, and it's like, yeah, she's telling the truth.
I hope so.
So
yeah.
anyway,
yeah. Actually, when I did my ancestry DNA test, I have done DNA tests.
Yes, that was actually what I was going to ask next. When did the DNA tests occur, and what were the circumstances?
The first one was in 2008, 2009. I can't remember exactly which, and that was to determine siblingship.
Okay.
The second one was in 2018. I bought my husband a DNA test, and I did one too, and that was ancestry DNA. I believe it was ancestry. And then with that, you could hook up to all sorts of different, like MyHeritage and all sorts of other different sites.
Okay.
And I didn't hook it up with the other sites until much later, in probably 2020. And then when I did that, I found relatives from Brian's mother's side.
Okay.
Doing the genealogy of my dad, which I have done. I know their names. I know who they are. I know, those were cousins of Brian's. And so I actually wrote them, hi, I see I'm related to you. Really, really light, kind of not, I'm Brian Jones's daughter. I didn't say that. I said, I'm related to you. And then I don't have the notifications set up for those sites. So I didn't check for like 6 months. I didn't check and see if, then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to check and see if these people have answered me. And I went back and I checked, and their results were no longer available to me.
Whoa.
They blocked me, or they took their stuff down.
My goodness.
This family is, I'm not going to say the word I want to say, but this family is something else.
Well, I mean, what I would say is that they seem pretty closed off, and I think they should be the opposite. I mean, I think that, yeah, I mean, they should be the opposite in a personal way. Like, they should be welcoming of you and your siblings, but also,
You know what? Our DNA just matched. What's the problem here? What
it's like
issue?
they they literally have the proof right there that they need. It's like, guys, she's telling the truth.
Yep.
And
What's
and
And so they either blocked me or they took down the ability to do matches. I don't know what they did, but they were no longer visible. So
I've actually not that site, so I don't really know like all the ways that it's set up. But I mean, I'm sorry that they did that. And but I was gonna say like in terms of his career though, I'm a little surprised that his family is not doesn't have a little bit more pride in what he did. I mean, he was the founding father of the Rolling Stones. He's been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's one of the fathers of the British invasion. Like, why do you think that his family didn't embrace those accomplishments more?
I can't give you an answer to that. I really don't know. Um, I think they're a very private bunch and they don't want to be bothered.
Well, I mean, fair enough. Like maybe they are proud, and I mean, of course, I don't know them, but maybe they are proud and they just want to be private. But I'm sorry to hear that they were not more open to you as a family member.
What are you going to do? You know.
Yeah, and but on a better subject though, are there any stories about your father that you particularly treasure? Like, is there any story that someone told you that particularly touched you?
You know what? I don't have anything offhand, but I would love to hear from the people like this gentleman that I want to go and see in Italy. Because I've always wanted to go to Italy. I've not been yet. Hopefully he has some stories to tell me.
Okay.
But offhand, not really. Not anything that anybody has told me.
Okay. Do you feel like the Rolling Stones have given your father proper credit for his role in the band?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I think that he should have had not writing credit, but being included in the music part of it, being credited towards developing the music. There are songs that absolutely would not be the songs that they are without Brian. I'm talking about Ruby Tuesday. I don't even think Mick had. I think that was a Jones Richards creation.
Yeah, from what I understand.
Right. That song would not be. Brian had a way of a real talent of knowing which instrument to use to add color to a song, to add the flavor that gives the song its signature. Ruby Tuesday, the recorder, Paint It Black, the sitar, Lady Jane, the dulcimer. I think he should have been included in the credits for writing the music on that because I think he deserved that.
And a lot of Stonesologists agree with you. Like the Jagger Richards mantle was very precious to them, and unfortunately, they chose not to include your father in it when he clearly should have been, in my opinion.
I believe so too. That may have had something to do with the management as well. Like I know that ABCO was a big thing. They are pretty strict. Oldham, I think Andrew Oldham was the one who created who wanted that duo and probably excluded Brian from that.
Okay.
That glimmer.
And yeah, exactly. And had your father lived, do you think that he eventually would have had a successful solo career or perhaps formed another band?
I believe so. If he really needed to solve the issues that he was experiencing. I think he needed a lot of help, psychological help. I think he needed to address the substance use. I know that he got better, but he needed to, I think if he would have quit alcohol and drugs and then gotten some help, I think he would have been amazing. I really do.
Exactly. And if he had lived today, those things would have been readily available. But it's hard to remember that in 1969, that wasn't necessarily the case.
I think, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. But I think he would have been, had he solved his issues, had he delved into his demons and chased them off, I think he would have been magnificent.
And sadly, he didn't, but we still have his music. And I think we're all grateful for that.
Yeah, that's true.
So are there any pictures or videos of your father that you particularly treasure? I know that there is a lot of that on YouTube right now, but what do you love seeing as a daughter?
You know what? The photos that were taken of him in Courtfield Road are really cool. I think that reflected his personality a lot. I know that he had done a mural. And this is the thing. I used to do that. I used to drive my parents nuts. I started murals on my bedroom ceiling. I painted all sorts of stuff. And he did that. I believe it was Courtfield Road that he did some murals. He did painting on the walls. It was pretty cool. Reflected his personality. He was surrounded by his instruments. There was one photo of him where he was sitting on the ground or on the floor amidst chaos. There was records all over, books all over, instruments. And I'm like, yeah, that and it reminded me of me. And he took comfort in that chaos, and it was pretty cool to see that, to see everything that he was interested in all spread out there all around him. That was pretty cool.
Nice. Now, that was the Jared Mankiewicz photo shoot, right?
What was
the photographer, I think, was Jared Mankiewicz for that photo shoot.
Oh, right. Yes. Yes. True.
Yeah, I've seen those pictures. They are really cool, and they're very personal as well. Like you point.
That's what I like about it. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, exactly. And do you see it as your duty to promote and to represent his legacy as his daughter?
I do what I can, but I don't see it as my duty. I think he speaks for himself pretty well.
Okay. And you've talked about this a little bit already, but how do you think that you're like your father?
In many ways. In many ways. Not just the music, but I can see myself in him a lot. Kind of the self-destruction. There was a lot of that. And also the determination. A lot of he did have a great deal of initiative and determination in those early years. He was phenomenal. And I see a lot of that in me. But I see a lot of the same demons. I chased those demons off. So, but yeah, I see a lot of me in him.
And I think that one thing you pointed out is key to his personality, perhaps, was that he was a very determined person, and he did have a lot of drive. I mean, he couldn't have made that band as successful as it was without being resourceful and without being a driving force. Like, I think that the sadness of his death overshadows what strength he had and what initiative he took to get that band where it eventually wound up.
Yeah, that was amazing that he did that. And the first slide guitarist, white slide guitarist in England, that was pretty cool. He did some amazing things that were firsts, and he did them well. I think Brian's problem was that he needed constant reassurance. And that wasn't really provided for him. I think he would have done a lot better had he had a better support system than he did.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, he didn't really have much of a support system from his family members, and in the band, a lot of the relationships had complexities that didn't necessarily result in strong friendships, and
Right.
and compounded on that, he perhaps needed psychiatric care that was not commonplace or available at that time.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so much available today that would have benefited him. But at that time he didn't have it. So he was, I believe, very insecure person and needed a lot of reassurance and support.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had his darknesses, but from what you're saying and from what I've heard, it does sound like he was a bit of a victim of the times medically and perhaps just personality wise. I mean, I feel like there really was not the feeling of camaraderie and sharing success among band members that exists today, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, do you own any of your father's belongings?
I do not. I tried to buy some. There was somebody who was supposedly selling the some of his belongings, and I sent money. I never received them. So
Really? Yeah. You literally sent money and they didn't give you his belongings.
that's correct. I at the time didn't know how distrustful of a person this was. So there were photos and everything, and yeah, so this person wasn't very trustful. He was kind of a shyster.
Did you find this person through eBay or was it through just a private website?
No, he actually he wrote a book about
Do you mind me asking which author it was?
Giuliano.
Giuliano? Okay. I mean, sheesh. I'm really sorry that happened, Barbara. I mean,
It's no big deal. It's just a couple $100. What do you?
Well, I'm sorry that happened, and hopefully you'll be able to obtain something of your father's. I actually was able to see one of your father's guitars when I was in the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. I believe it was the one he used when the Rolling Stones were on Top of the Pops.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've seen his guitar. I've seen was it I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and I've seen a lot of the Rolling Stones stuff there. And then there was a Hard Rock Cafe that I got to see his, I don't remember where exactly but I did get to see his Teardrop. But to actually own anything, I don't. Just as DNA.
Well, I don't mean to bring the mood down a bit, but you were 5 months old, I believe, when he passed away. When you found out, and now today, do you have any regrets about the fact that you didn't have the opportunity to know your father?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It would have been great. I think by the time I was an adult, he would have welcomed all of his children. I think so.
He actually had a Roland, his final girlfriend, that he had spoken about wanting his children to come stay with him and wanting to be more a part of their lives. So perhaps if he had lived, he would have eventually, welcomed you as well.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, I think so. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember how young he was when he passed away as well. I mean, 27 years old and he was gone, and we don't really know what he would have been. But yeah, what he would have been like if he had grown into a mature human being eventually.
That's true. Two of my sons are actually older, but one just turned 29 the other day, August 31st, and I have a 30-year-old, and that's young. 27 is so young. I was a kid at 20.
I know.
Yeah, we make a lot of mistakes. And as we grow older, we get wisdom. So,
And I think he would have gained wisdom eventually. It's sad that we'll never know.
right.
Let's see. Is there anyone who knew your father who has been especially helpful and kind in speaking with you about him?
Not really.
Hmm.
Not really. Just I've spoken with Pat Andrews, who knew him personally. Yeah. It's so hard to get anything out of my mom. It really was. I had to dig and dig and dig and say, well, that doesn't sound right. What about this? You know, she wasn't too forthcoming. I can't really say that there's anybody that maybe in the future, but as of yet, no.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've read this before, but when I was reading the Beatles anthology and also some other books about George Harrison, he was very praising towards your father, and apparently they did. Yeah, they had a friendship and a mutual love of music. So I don't know if you've ever read quotes about him.
I have.
Okay.
I have. And they were. George was born the 25th of February. Actually, I believe he was born like at midnight on the 24th. Whatever. There's some issue with that. And then Brian was born on the 28th. So I did read something about, the closeness of their birthdays and how that may have been a factor in how they got along so well. So.
Yeah. And let's see. What made you decide to go public about being Brian's daughter?
I don't think I actually made a decision to do that. It was something that happened organically. I think people just started figuring out who I was. I started posting on boards. Somebody got a hold of my MySpace. I don't know really how it came about, but it's been 22 and a half years since I've known. So it's just me probably posting on boards, but I never really told anybody. I never really said, yeah, I'm his daughter. I'm really not sure how that came out.
Okay.
It may have been when I started contacting my siblings.
Okay. And eventually you were interviewed for some publications and a documentary. How
2019.
Yeah. And did you feel comfortable with that? I mean, did it feel good reclaiming your identity when you started to speak about your father?
Oh yeah. I had no problem with that. I was happy to do that. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. It was a good experience.
Good. And so have people been generally respectful towards you and welcoming of you and also accepting of the proof? I mean, you've literally had it tested by DNA. You know you're his daughter.
They have. There are a few. Brian has some fans that are really out there. Most people are extremely cool. Really cool people, interesting people. And I've made some really good friends. Nice. I mean, we don't even have to talk about Brian. They're just my friends. And because of the connection of Brian Jones, that they are my friends, but it doesn't, that isn't the glue, it's, they're really cool people. But then there are some who are just absolutely crazy. I'm sorry. It's just batshit.
Yeah, I guess you have to be careful with some of them too. You never know what might happen.
Delusional. They think they know him. They think they talk to his family. There's some people. I've been kicked out of a lot of Facebook groups, mainly because I speak my mind, and I don't believe some of the. There are some really, cool people, and then there's some a little bit off people.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're able to kind of sift through them, and you've kind of figured out how to tell the good actors from the bad actors, which is
Yes,
wonderful.
definitely, definitely.
You know, there are actually two things that I wanted to ask you about as well. There have been some songs that your father inspired, apparently, and two in particular stand out to me. The Rolling Stones, after your father passed away, wrote the song "Shine a Light" about you, and I've heard from my sources that that's actually about your father. What do you think of that song?
I really like that song a lot. That's a cool song. Was that on the Exile? What album was that on? I'm not even
Yes, I believe it. I think it was Exile on Main Street. It was written, I think, when they were in France as tax exiles. So yeah, that would have been written like shortly after your father passed away.
Okay, yeah, that's a cool song. I like that album. I
Me
like
too.
that whole album. Yeah. But yeah,
And,
that's a cool song. Very much so.
and another song that apparently your father was one of was partly inspired by your father was "Like a Rolling Stone" by Bob Dylan, one of his great admirers.
Really, I had not heard that before.
Yeah,
That.
it's. I mean, I haven't
Wasn't that
spoken with Bob Dylan about personally.
wasn't that written in 1965? When was?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I'd not heard that before. That's a new one.
yeah. I mean, I only found out about it recently too, and Bob. Like, I don't think Bob wrote it about one person in particular, but apparently one of the people that he was looking at when during the writing of the song was your father. So
Cool.
maybe that's how he actually got the main lyric.
That's cool. That's very. I love Bob Dylan. That he's one of my favorite artists. In fact, I saw him 22 times in concert.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, I
22.
know. I was a little bit of a kind of a deadhead when it came to it came to Bob Dylan. I would follow him around. Just absolutely love the guy.
Nice. I actually got to see him when I first moved out here to California. It was at this festival where the Rolling Stones played as well, and the Who, and Neil Young, and it was right after he had won, I believe, the Nobel Prize in literature, and it was so cool seeing.
Oh wow.
Great.
Yeah. Oh God. And this was before I was really into Bob before I knew anything about Brian because in 1994, okay, hold on. Yes, August 1994, I was newly pregnant, maybe 2 or 3 months with my first son.
Okay.
I scored front seat. Actually, it was in Wisconsin that they were playing. We were front and center, and Santana opened for Bob Dylan. What a show!
Oh my gosh.
94 in Wisconsin, Alpine Valley. I think it was Alpine Valley.
Okay.
Yeah. What a concert! Blew me away. Santana, incredible.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, really far back when I saw him, but still, I love what a poet.
Who with Bob Dylan? Wow. Yeah, that awesome.
Yeah, it was called. Now I remember what the festival was called. It was called Desert Trip. It had the Stones and Bob Dylan and the Who, Neil Young, Paul McCartney, and
Legends.
one other person. What was that?
Fabulous. That must have been absolutely fabulous.
It was probably one of the most fun concert experiences I've ever had. And of course, Bob Dylan was wonderful. And Mick actually got on stage and said, "All right, this is the Catch 'em Before They Croak concert."
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, Mick seems like a funny guy. I'd like to, I know that again, Mick Jagger and your father had a complicated relationship as well, but I mean, it seems like Mick genuinely is funny though, and he can tell a joke. And
I think he's an incredibly intelligent person. He's very business savvy. The guy is impressive when it comes to business.
He actually went to the London School of Economics before he had his music career.
Yep.
What do you think is a valuable lesson to be learned from your father's life?
not to drink anymore, not to do drugs, to get my life together, and just not do what he did, because I was on that path. I was on that path.
Now,
So,
had you had those issues before you found out that he was your father, or were these issues that continued after you found out?
I think I've always had an issue, but it just, there was a point in time where it got really, really bad. And that was after I knew who he was. And yeah, I am glad. I am so freaking happy that I straightened out my life. So happy. Life is a beautiful, amazing thing. It really is, when you don't have monkeys on your back, you don't have addictions, you don't have all these psychological issues. When you work through them, it's an amazing adventure. And I really love being alive. It's cool. So yeah,
And that's the wonderful.
get it together, get your stuff together. And yeah.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that you were able to do that.
Yeah, it was.
You're lucky. And have you ever considered partnering with any of your siblings on a tribute to your father, like maybe in a book or as a concert, anything like that?
I would love to do that, but I don't think they're keen. I really don't think they would be keen, because like I said, they're very private people. And
Okay.
it's not really something that I see them getting together with me and doing. Although I'd love to. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I've never discussed anything like that. But it seems to me that they all live their private lives, and yeah. And I think that's something that they probably would not do, but like I said, I've never discussed it with them, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would be ways for them to contribute anonymously, maybe. Like if you guys were to author a book or something like that, like they could use synonyms when they talk about your father, and they could each kind of contribute their opinion of him, and maybe you could get quotes from other people.
That might be possible. That might be possible.
Yeah, there's actually a book that Yoko Ono released. I think for the 25th anniversary of John Lennon's death, where basically she had a bunch of people who knew John Lennon or were fans of him write essays about either their memories or what his work meant to them, and it turned out to be a really nice, beautiful tribute. It would be cool if something like that about your father were published, and like they could have an essay from each of his children and from musicians who admire him.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a thought. That's a thought.
I kind of like that idea. I'm a writer, and maybe that's a project I should take on.
I'm a writer too. I've actually published a book before, but it was self-published through Amazon. So I do have a book. But it has nothing to do with Brian. It has to do with how I overcame my addiction, and step-by-step process of doing that. And I use it as a basis to help my clients. So I have published a book before, but self-publishing on Amazon, that's the extent of it. But getting a publisher, I think probably that could happen. Yeah, I'd be interested. Sure, I would. I would love it if my siblings would too. Yeah, but again, they really didn't know him.
They didn't, but again, it kind of seems like even though you didn't know him, you still relate to him in a lot of ways, and you have these similarities to his life, and like you pointed out, you were able to look at his life and the mistakes that he made, and use that as an incentive to turn your life around and to make your life a success story rather than have the ending that he did.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll have to we'll have to talk more about that, but still, I think that's a cool idea. Yeah. If you had been given the chance to meet your father, what would you have wanted to ask him?
Ooh, okay. In my younger years, about 10, 12 years ago, I would have asked him why you abandoned all your children. Why did you leave such a trail of destruction? And in every single case, not one of us got left in a really good situation. And he, especially with like the three boys in the middle, he could have done a lot for those children. And I would have been aggressive and I would have been a little bit hostile. But now I would have wanted to know the psychological reasons behind it, and not in an aggressive or hostile or offensive way. But I would want to delve into what he experienced as a child, how he grew up, and things that led up to that.
Okay.
So
I
mean,
kind of,
I was really angry at him at one point, but I've softened quite a bit because I realized that I was not Mother of the Year either. But I got a lot better,
mhm.
you know. So I'm not one to judge.
Okay. So you kind of, it sounds like you've grown more compassionate towards him and also towards yourself.
Definitely. I could be a very angry person, and I would have probably used the F word and the whole thing. But now, if he were alive, I would have wanted to know all about what he went through as a child, how he was feeling. Yeah, in a much gentler, more compassionate way than what I would have said probably 10, 15 years ago.
Okay. And what is the best thing you've ever heard anyone say about your father?
Probably regarding his musical talent. I would not be able to pull up an exact quote, but people who like Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, people who praised his ability to, as I had said previously, to color the music, to know exactly what instrument to pick up. That's cool to hear that people thought so highly of his musical ability. I don't think he was, I don't think he really completely mastered any instrument, but he knew exactly what to add where and how to make it so interesting. And a lot of people have expressed that. So that's really cool to hear.
And from what I gather of Brian's contributions as a musician, I think that he was a wonderful editor of music and embellisher of songs. Like, even if he didn't necessarily write the way that Mick Jagger and Keith Richards did, like you said, he knew what to add. He knew how to arrange. Like, basically, he knew how to take a bit of a sow's ear and turn it into a silk purse with the right flourishes.
Exactly. And even when he was sounding really ropey, like the Beatles song that he played the saxophone on at the end, that was brilliant. And
yeah, which song was that?
You Know My Name, Look Up the Number.
Yes, that's right. I remember that now.
Yeah. And it was not perfect. It was ropey, but it fit in just beautifully. For that number, it was perfect.
I'm so glad you brought. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what plans do you have for the future in regards to your father's legacy? Are you attending any events or memorials to him?
I attended his 50th at his grave, the 50th anniversary of his death, and met a bunch of wonderful people there. I've been to his grave quite a few times. So, but don't have any real plans not anything solid for the future, but I'm open to it.
And I'm a little curious what that was like meeting those people. I mean, were there some people who knew your father, or was it mostly fans?
Some people knew, my father, mostly fans. Yeah. Some really great people. Just
And what was that like for?
really cool people.
Nice. And I bet it was really special for them as well. Like, I don't know if they were expecting to meet his daughter at that event, or any of the other times you've gone.
No, I think that was the only time that I met anybody. I visited the grave a couple times with a sibling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and but that was the only time that I visited when other people were around. So that was, yeah, the only time, the 50th anniversary of his death. So, but in the future, I don't
I've
have any,
actually visited.
but I'm open to it.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that you get invited to more events, and again, fingers crossed, the Rolling Stones will start to welcome you. I mean, I think that it would be lovely if they were more inclusive.
I forgot his the opening of his film in Chicago at the Music Box Theater, the Danny Garcia's film. I did attend that, and I did do something afterwards. I forgot about that. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, that was fantastic. It was cold because it was February. It was February 28th, I believe, of, was that 2020? It was 2020 because it was right before that whole panorama thing. So that was, and that was really cool at the Music Box Theater. Yeah, so I did a Q&A there, and yeah, theater was packed. It was great. It was great.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And what do you love or admire most about your father as a man and or as a musician?
Probably the ability that he had with music, like we had discussed earlier, the way that he just knew how to color a song, that you don't see that much. You don't. So that's what I admire about him.
Nice. How about as a man?
Well, the thing is that I have to go on other people's experience because I was 4.5 months when he died. So just never, I admire his initiative and his will. He had a very strong will in the beginning to get one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time together, the way that he did, and the way that he just kept at it, getting gigs and so forth. That's very admirable.
Really is. And how do you want Brian Jones to be remembered?
For his music. For his music.
Yeah. How do you want to be remembered?
For the people that I help. That's my success is measured in how many people that I can help. So that's how I want to be remembered.
You've been able to take your experience and actually use it as a way to help other people out of their problems.
Yeah. And that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Barbara Anna Marion, thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.